It's finally ready. Huge changes are actually coming to Social Security, and these changes are actually important and actually affect millions of Americans in monthly benefit checks. So senior citizens, everybody, and Social Security beneficiaries will see a monthly payment boosted in just a few weeks. You guys can be expecting the stimulus checks in a couple of days because inflation has taken a heavy toll on the United States economy this year. Everybody knows that. And more than 1/3 of adults have actually dipped into their savings to cover living expenses. And the personal savings rate has actually dropped to a 14-year low of 3%. So according to the Bureau of Economic Analysis, inflation has made the life especially difficult for retirees who depend on Social Security, Medicare premiums, and they jumped 14.5% in 2022. That is the fourth largest increase in the last 2 decades. Prices across several other spending packages and categories like food, gas, and electric has actually increased at a double-digit pace in August. And based on that data, the 5.9% cost of living adjustment applied to Social Security benefits in 2022 fell very short. The good news is that there are big changes, 3 changes actually in 2023 that can help retirees on Social Security fight inflation. Social Security's COLAs protect the purchasing power of benefits by ensuring they keep up with rising prices. Inflation hit a 40-year high several times in 2022, meaning the COLA in 2033 is on pace to be the largest in 4 decades. In fact, a committee of the responsible federal budget says that retirees could see a 9% COLA next year. A 9% COLA would bump the average monthly benefit paid to retired workers to roughly $1,900 in 2023, an increase of $150 per month. Similarly, the average monthly benefit paid to spouses of retired workers would be roughly $908, an increase of $75 a month. So the extra cash could help offset rising prices at grocery stores and gas stations. Social Security recipients ages 65 and older are automatically enrolled in Medicare Part A and Part B. Unless you specifically opt out of this, you're going to get the check. Most beneficiaries receive, let's say, Medicare Part A for free, provided they have paid Medicare taxes for at least 10 years, and most people do. So Medicare Part B premiums are automatically deducted from Social Security benefits each month. After a massive price hike in 2022, the standard Medicare Part B premium is projected to drop 3% to $165 in 2023. That is great news for retirees. It means a smaller portion of their Social Security check will be deducted to cover Medicare Part B premiums each month. And given the trajectory inflation has followed this year, some beneficiaries may have to decide to remain in the workforce after claiming Social Security. Working individuals who claim Social Security before full retirement age will see a temporary reduction in benefits and if their earnings exceed certain limits. In 2022, the earnings limit is around $20,000 for individuals under full retirement age for the entire year. If wages exceed that threshold, $1 in benefits will be deducted for every $2 in earnings over the limit. For example, an individual under full retirement age who earns $34,000 this year will see their Social Security benefit reduced by $7,500. And 2 Washington Democrats like Senator Hirono and Ted Dutch have teamed up to reintroduce legislation to strengthen Social Security. Their bill, the Protecting and Preserving Social Security Act, aims to extend the program's ability to pay benefits, and the SSA projects the program combined funds will run out in 2035, at which point 80% of benefits are payable, and their proposal would actually extend that by bringing the depletion date to 2052. So, according to an analysis of the plan by the Social Security Administration, by the end of the projected year, the plan would reduce the federal deficit by about $12 trillion, with just 13 years left until Social Security's funds are projected to run out. Other Democrats have put forward plans to extend the timeline while also making benefits generous. Currently, it is funded through payroll taxes of 6.2% paid by workers and employers, but those taxes only apply to income of up to $147,000. So people need stimulus now, and even Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren have a proposal that would apply to payroll taxes on everybody making over $250,000. So people should be getting stimulus checks soon, everybody.
The gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Foster, who is also the chair of the Task Force on Artificial Intelligence, is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just like to touch briefly again on regulatory capital levels. I'm amazed at how consistent the industry is. When you come to us, it is almost always with some elaborate set of logic to try to convince us that you should be allowed to lever up more. And it's interesting because if you if you've probably all been forced to learn all about the Modigliani-Miller theorem that says the return on equity is independent of capital structure and in particular independent of leverage. And so why is it that you are always demanding higher levels of leverage? And I think part of the answer was well analyzed at the end of the financial crisis, that you all benefit from your having the federal government and the federal taxpayer as the insurer of last resort. If under an extreme disaster, one of the cities you do business with gets nuked, they're all insolvent, and you will be bailed out by the government, and that's okay. The question is how far out on the tail the government should assume that risk. And so the game that you will always be in is trying to allow you to lever up and expose the taxpayer to that risk. And our job will always be to push back against that and demand enough levels of regulatory capital that it's very unlikely that the taxpayer will be called upon to do that. And so just a quick question there. Do any of you believe that the higher regulatory capital levels of Dodd-Frank have prevented you from having an extraordinarily profitable decade? The records show that no one has indicated such. So I think that's a very significant conclusion from the whole debate here. I'd like to spend some time talking about secure digital ID and know your customer requirements. Mr. Demchak spoke eloquently about the difficulties of dealing with financial fraud, and a lot of that is identity fraud. Mr. Moynihan had a very unpleasant experience with the failure of the federal government or state governments to have any kind of secure, reliable way of authenticating you are who you say you are online, and exposing you to very high levels of fraud and having to do something quick and dirty and unfortunate and trying to fix that. This experience wasn't shared in countries where they had a secure and reliable way of proving you are who you say you are online. And the EU, most all of you do business internationally, and you're probably aware the EU has a very comprehensive roadmap for a secure digital ID that would allow you to, if you want to open a bank account, you walk into a branch, you get out your cell phone, you say, okay, you get your passport or whatever it is, or your real ID compliant driver's license if it's in the US that's on your cell phone, convince your cell phone that it's really you and someone hasn't stolen your cell phone, and with a pretty quick interaction have a very secure way of proving that you are a single legally traceable person. And there is a roadmap that's actually being rolled out by a number of states. Ironically, the technical standards behind those were all developed by NIST in the United States, now adopted by ISO and now being used in Europe. There are countries that you do business in, like Korea, where this is a reality today, that you can prove use modern technology, use your cell phone effectively like a security dongle. So what is your stance on this? What are the differences you see in the different countries that you operate, some of which have secure digital ID, some of which are moving toward it? And what is your feeling of where the United States should be going on this? Mr. Demchak, we'll start with you.
Thank you for the question and for the thought that you've clearly put into this. It is a big problem in our country, and I think we should move towards a digital ID. It's something that the banking industry is actually working towards today with a product called Authentify, where once you authenticate yourself with one bank, we can share that ID in any other service that you might want to use electronically. We have to get this sorted. Fraud is a massive problem, and our methods, our historical ways to deal with this aren't working.
Yeah, and that's a very noble approach.
A long time ago, who was saying when I had an aneurysm, he kept saying, is it congenital or is it environmental? And I said, I don't care. You just get it done. He said, you know what your problem is, Senator? I said, no. He said, you're a congenital optimist. But I am. I'm an American. That's why I'm a congenital optimist. So look, I really mean it. We can do anything. Jobs that pay good wages and respect workers' rights. Communities that come to life around investments. Families that can envision a future with an opportunity, just as my dad would say, just give them a little bit of breathing room.
Janet Yellen has released a new big statement on President Biden's relief package. Officials have confirmed that millions will be receiving a direct relief payment very soon, and the stimulus is available for full-time residents of Colorado who have filed their 2021 tax returns by May 31st. According to a news release, approximately 3 million Colorado residents are eligible for the rebate. The Senate president said that Coloradans are up against high rates of inflation and the rising cost of living, and they're feeling the pinch. This year, they were able to extend much-needed support to families and individuals in the form of direct relief for taxpayers. We're helping Coloradans make ends meet during this challenging time and putting money directly into their wallets. The legislation designed to help Coloradans combat the rising cost of everyday necessities is going to provide $400 for a single filer. The state's strong economic rebound, which includes more than 100% recovery rate of jobs lost during the crisis and a 4% unemployment rate, has led to a record state surplus. The surplus will be returned to taxpayers in several ways, and the first of these is a reduction in the income tax rate, a senior homestead exemption, the Colorado dividend, and a 6-tiered sales tax rebate for next year. That is really awesome news, everybody, for you that live in Colorado. Over 70% of Americans disapprove of President Biden's handling of inflation and gas prices, indicating that economic security remains a high priority for the voting population. According to a new ABC poll, as of June 4th, 71% say they're unsatisfied with Biden's efforts to curb inflation, and 72% said the same for gas prices. Now, Biden's approval rating has been sinking for months, dropping to the lowest level of his presidency in late May at 39%. According to recent polls, satisfaction with his leadership has been declining for the last year of his tenure in office. While many issues have plagued Biden's administration, economic uncertainty and consumer purchasing power seem to be contributing to most Americans' negative outlook. Now, U.S. Treasury Secretary issued an official statement this week rebutting claims made in a book that she initially wanted to trim President Biden's bill by a third. Janet Yellen has denied claims that she wanted Biden to scale back the size of his $1.9 trillion relief package last year, over fears it could choke inflation. Like Yellen said, I never urged adoption of a smaller American Rescue Plan package, and I believe the American Rescue Plan played a central role in driving strong growth throughout 2021 and afterwards.
Poised to seize the future. Everybody, the press always asks me, why am I so optimistic with the way things are? Take a look at all these young folks. They're the best educated. They're the most generous. They're the people who have done the most. They're ready to volunteer, and they're the least prejudiced folks in the world. It's a new generation, and that's an underpinning. It gives me an enormous sense of, and I mean this sincerely, an enormous sense of optimism. We have everything we need right here in the Western Hemisphere, not only to point ourselves toward a future that is more prosperous, secure, and democratic, but the ability to achieve it as well. And for all of you are essential to making sure we get to this place we have to get to. You know, the private sector is able to move quickly, to mobilize vast amounts of investment capital as are going to be needed to unlock the enormous potential for growth in this hemisphere, in the region. And when we combine the ability of government to direct economic activity towards specific challenges, to help mitigate risk, guard against unfair practices, and create predictable demand, with the agility of the private sector, I believe we can deliver real improvement for people's lives. I really believe it. You know, just my wife often reminds me that I had a doctor who, along
from Texas, Mr. Arrington, to inquire.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Madam Secretary. Prior to COVID, after tax reform and regulatory relief, we as a nation experienced unprecedented economic prosperity. All boats rose on the tide of that prosperity. We had the lowest unemployment in decades. We had the lowest poverty rate in the history. Jobs, we were hitting on all cylinders. COVID hits. But today, after 18 months of this administration, I believe that this administration has sown the wind of reckless economic policies, and the American people have reaped the whirlwind of economic pain. The spending spree that lit a fire on inflation that has consumed every American, every worker, consumed their wages, consumed their purchasing power, consumed their livelihoods. Irresponsible unemployment policies, welfare without work requirements, reasonable stuff that wouldn't trap and sideline labor so small businesses who were trying to get up on their feet